is there ghosts? Because he's seeing stuff and they're hearing things and what's going on?
Well, I think like the overall like marketing of it, obviously it was kind of, the trailer was very much, this is a horror movie, but I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it feels like all of us were on the, like, we know Hercule Poirot's world is, he is a detective who finds out like what's really going on. We know there's not paranormal stuff coming, guys. Right. You can try to tell us as much as you want that it is, but we all know. But then the movie gets going, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's gonna be both. That's what I kind of got a little bit early on. Like, all right, I think maybe they're gonna go both.
And welcome back to the Movie Dads podcast. We're your hosts, Howie.
And I'm Kyle.
And that is Kyle. Welcome back, everybody. This is episode number 21. Big premiere movie of the week, A Haunting in Venice.
Wow.
Kyle, we just saw it. We like just walked in the door. It's after midnight. We're half asleep but jacked up at the same time.
Yes.
It's good stuff.
I think we've only done this one other time where we've watched a movie and immediately filmed.
Yeah, once or twice. It's not very often. We usually like to let things sit a day, process. We also don't like to record after midnight because then our bags are packed and we're, because we're movie dads, and so we are dealing with movie kids. So let's get to the business side of things. If you're watching us on YouTube, please click the like and subscribe. Hit that bell, leave a comment, tell your friends, tell your family, share our videos. We'd appreciate that. If you're listening to us on a podcast network, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, and Podcast Index. You can see some of our short videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and Facebook. So episode 21, A Haunting in Venice, the new third film in the Kenneth Branagh Hercule Poirot. Hercule Poirot.
Hercule Poirot. Battle.
Hercule Poirot. His
everybody says it's so different in all the movies. They all say his name differently.
Yeah, because he sounds French, but he's Belgian. So, I mean, you can say it however you want to say it. But this is Kenneth Branagh's interpretation of the classic Agatha Christie sleuth, Hercule Poirot. Anyway, we're movie dads. We've got what?
Oh, so did you ever read? You read the books, right?
I read a couple of the books. Like I've read Murder on the Orient Express. I think I've read the ABC Murders. I read them when I was younger, like junior high. So
what a great
I think that was the one
Amazon show.
Malkovich. Yeah, Malkovich did that one, right?
Yes.
Like it was a BBC Prime collab.
Yeah, it was Amazon Prime. It's so good. It's like a 4-episode mini series.
Right.
He is awesome.
Yeah.
Very different take on the character than what
there's lots of different takes on the character. If you've ever seen like the 1974 version of Murder on the Orient Express, which was Albert Finney. And then I think, who's the most famous is was it David Satchet? I think David Satchet played Hercule Poirot. David Suchet played him for 24 years.
Crazy.
From 1989 to 2013 when he finally retired from playing the character. So yeah, he's been portrayed a lot. But yeah, anyway, that's Hercule Poirot.
I noticed you changed your shirt, by the way.
I did change my shirt. I noticed you changed your background.
I was wearing this shirt before, and that
you were wearing the shirt.
Been up all week.
Yeah. Anyway, so like we're movie dads. I'm gonna start ripping stuff off the wall.
My original
We're movie dads. Just taking
my original
shit
plan
off the walls.
was to wear this, knowing that you would be like, "Oh, you want to do that?" and then go and grab yours, and then
I
I was
almost
gonna
wore
go,
my chain.
"Oh." Then I was gonna go, "Oh, you beat me," and then was gonna pull that one out and put the fucking shield on.
I almost wore my foam arrowhead headpiece. I decided against it.
Jesus. God,
It's distracting, Kyle.
It's attacking me. I don't know how I got this thing on me. I might have to take my headphones off to take care of this, but let's keep going.
Let's watch you struggle. Anyway, we're movie dads. We've got movie kids. This is amazing.
We're movie kids with movie dads.
Movie kids with movie dads. Last Sunday, we talked about it already, but our boys started flag football on Sunday. We've already complained about how Sundays are when youth sports happen in the fall, because heaven forbid you play a game on a Saturday in Nebraska. But the boys had their first flag football game for the Bills, and our boys played okay, right? They both played okay. There was, there's some kinks to work out in their game. Maybe a little bit. There's a little. I talked to Des a little bit about hustling and what hustling meant, and it was funny. We were actually watching Thursday Night Football on Prime last night, and I think it was T.J. Hawkinson had caught a pass or something, and it was Dallas Goedert had caught a pass for the Eagles, and he gets up on the sideline. He's kind of walking back to the huddle, and Des is like, he's not hustling.
Ooh. Well, Dad. When the game was over, Grayson and him, like, once the team huddle broke, Grayson they raced over to us, and he sprinted faster than I've ever seen him in any game. And I'm like, dude, he doesn't do bad by any means in the games, but like, he has a different speed that he just doesn't hit the switch. Yeah. He doesn't think that is what he needs to do during the sports. He thinks he's racing after the game. So anyways, it was the timing of the game is, I think, just really where my frustration lies. The game itself is great. I mean, looking at the Bills uniforms is difficult, but the layout of the game is kind of weird. Basically, both teams get to be on offense for like 40 freaking plays each before they switch, even if they score or turn it over.
Was it a designated amount of time? Is that what it was based on?
Yeah, I think so. Basically, it was like they do 4 quarters, but like one quarter is one team is on offense and the other's on defense. And then after that quarter, which I think were 15 minutes, they switched, and then they switched again. So what can you do? Like, they still are at an age where I'm confident to be like, we really need to have a practice in the middle of the week
or
for
2.
This. Yeah, last week they had 2.
The coach put in like the group chat. He's like, I think we need some plays we need to work on before our first game. We're going to add an extra practice. Okay.
Did we text back in that group text?
No, I didn't.
We think we need you to be on time for the next game.
Oh yeah. Well, I wasn't going to say that, but yeah.
I'm sure they'll all listen.
I know, but when the coach is like, make sure you're there 15 minutes early so we can warm up, and coach is there 7 minutes before the game starts, and every player was there already. It's problematic. It's problematic.
Listen to us being these freaking Pop Warner complaining dads. I love it.
But you already sound like you're going to fix that problem for next year.
Yeah, it's been decided. We're going to have a Millard team next year that is not going to be part of St. Christo's, Catholic group that we're in.
Private Catholic school. Our kids are public school kids. Yeah, that's different.
So we're going to have a public squad, and I'm going to coach them, and they're going to have a fucking blast. Like, they're going to have fun at these games. And
absolutely.
There's zero fun, sir, kind of vibes to their team.
Right. So we got done with flag football, and I had to run across the road because then Reagan had softball. and she had a doubleheader. I mean, my Sunday for watching football was non-existent, but doubleheader went well. Her on base percentage was 100%. She got on base every time, either through getting walked or hitting. So that was good. And I think she scored every time she got on base too. I think she made it all the way around. So it was good. The girls, the first game they knocked a little bit of rust off, but the second game they dominated. Like going into the bottom of the last inning, it was 13-1.
Jesus.
So, yeah, it was good.
Sounds like they're a good team.
They are a good team. They played really good. They were second. They were second in the spring in their bracket. Whatever their league they're in. They were second, and then it looks fall. They look like they took were taking off right where they were. So it'll be good. But nice. Yeah, that's it. Sports are back, and I'm excited for that. And I've got 4 games. We got 2 football games and 2 softball games this Sunday.
Yes.
So, back at it.
I got soccer tomorrow with Parker bright and early at 8 a.m. and then a freaking doubleheader. Of course we have a doubleheader, flag football day, on the holy Sabbath of Jags versus Chiefs. Yeah. Guys, everyone's getting lucky. They're getting a freaking heavyweight playoff rematch in week 2
at noon.
Jags. Yeah, they didn't even prime time it up. How's disrespectful.
That
but I'm happy about it because that means less people are going to put pressure on the Jags to crumble. But we probably will, and that's fine. That's fine. But
you were sounding pretty confident earlier.
Oh, I am confident. We're going to fucking stomp you guys. Fucking God.
You think stomp? You think stomp?
I think we're going to score 30 plus points on Sunday. You guys will probably score equal that, but I think we're for sure going to put up points.
How much better than the Lions offense is the Jags offense?
In terms of like overall, like weapons, muffins?
Yeah.
I think we have like 4 more dudes on our offense than the Lions do overall. Okay. They have Amon-Ra St. Brown, and that's pretty much the extent of their squad. Their other starting wide receiver is our 4th receiver from last year. So
Marvin Jones.
Yeah, we've got a better tight end than them too. So I truly hope that it's going to be a high scoring shootout of a game. I hope it's fun.
It would be more fun. It would be fun if that was the case.
Yeah, and obviously we're going to have a lot of money and bets in the game, and the more people score, the more bets hit. So, we've talked movie dads with our movie kids.
Yeah, are you good? You good? You got any more kids stuff to talk about?
Only just proud dad moment this week. Grayson has been we have been hammering spelling for these spelling tests that he has. Mm-hmm. Like sight words and stuff, because he's a little bit behind from last year. And so every day before we go to bed, we're hammering this list of 10 words plus a couple bonus words. And today crushed it. First, earlier in the year and last year, sometimes he would come home with 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. But he crushed it, 8 out of 10. And one of them should have been 9 out of 10. She freaking screwed him on one of them. She was freaking a teacher of whom I will not name, but he did really awesome, and it was good to see his hard work kind of pay off. So, and just how awesome. Excited he was to run home and show, Dad, look what I got on my desk. It's oh yeah,
that's fantastic. Cool. Yeah, that's great.
So
that's good for Grayson.
And obviously we have our next segment, which is my most excited segment, 6 to midnight, the things that get us up in the morning, and get us excited about upcoming nerd stuff, upcoming movies, current movies, games, any type of nerddom that has us excited, from 6 to midnight. So usually we talk about these pre-episode, which just so we're kind of on the same page, and we did not. I'm assuming we're going to have different things because I don't think you've watched this quite yet, and I won't give any spoilers. My 6 to Midnight is I have been like blown away, surprised, shocked at how good and how much I like the new Star Wars Ahsoka TV show. Like, I've never been a big fan of like the whole like Anakin Skywalker master to Padawan Ahsoka. Like, the characters, just the dynamic never really hit for me. But frickin' Dave Filoni, he gets Star Wars. He's the only human on Earth who has the same brain as George Lucas, for the most part. Maybe even a little bit better in terms of like just understanding characters, the Force. In this show, again, we'll not give spoilers, but it kind of feels like we're getting that old school vibe where like Jedis were, there wasn't a lot of them, but when you see one, you know they're special and that there's a big deal. There's a lot of he's kind of going for like a samurai vibe with Ahsoka and just a lot of like old samurai movies, which there was an episode in The Mandalorian that she was in, which they basically mirrored. I forget which samurai movie, but a really old black and white samurai movie. And he's kind of continued that into this show, and like kind of the rule of two vibes with like Sith and Dark Jedi, and we get stuff of an old character that deserved better in the past that is now finally getting his rightful flowers. I'll leave it at that, but man, this last episode that came out is perfect. If you're not watching Ahsoka, there's only 5 episodes. They're pretty short. It is quality Star Wars. It's what we needed.
How many total episodes is this season going to be?
That's a great question. I don't know the answer to that. They're at 5 right now,
sure.
but I don't. I think we still have
not very
a good
long.
run.
It's usually like 8 or something like that.
Yeah, like 8 to 10 or something. So
yeah.
It feels like we're like maybe halfway through, just in terms of like how the whole thing feels.
Okay.
But they might also, just now thinking back to like the Mandalorian and stuff, they really did like a slow burn with how they moved through, and like what could have very easily been the middle of a season, that was like the end of season 1, and then they just waited till the next. So I think I didn't see any rumblings about like this being a like season finale. Very well could have been, in terms of like mind-blowing things that happened and saw, and like payoff from years and years of different content. It was like we finally, when you want something for a really long time, and no matter what, whoever owns the franchise or the has control over it, they just don't give you what you want. Right. It's like this, maybe not necessarily the whole show, but especially this episode. It was like someone kind of stopped everything and said, you know what, we're going to give you guys what you want, and it's fantastic. So go see it, go watch it, catch up. You don't have to watch anything previous, and they do a really good job of not necessarily like bringing you up to speed, but like you're able to know what's going on without knowing any of like Rebels or the Clone Wars show or anything like that. So
very good.
Anyways,
nice.
What you got?
That's awesome. So mine was going to tie, we've talked about football already on this episode. We talked about football a little bit on last episode. But I watched the new Prime documentary, Kelce, about Jason Kelce, the center for the Philadelphia Eagles. It's really cool. So I listened to the New Heights podcast, which is hosted by Jason and his brother Travis, for obvious reasons. It's one of 3 podcasts I listen to, this being one of the other ones, and the Believe You Me podcast being the third. But those are the only podcasts I really try to listen to on a regular basis. But it's a cool documentary because it's like, it's also kind of like if anybody hasn't watched Quarterback on Netflix and you're a football fan, it's worth a watch. It's a really cool documentary that follows around Kirk Cousins, Patrick Mahomes, and Marcus Mariota for the season last year. And I thought that was kind of neat because it was really, they picked these 3 quarterbacks for the quarterback documentary, and they picked a guy that lost his job partway through the season. They picked a guy that made the playoffs and then lost in the first round, and then they picked the guy that won the Super Bowl, right? Which is, it's crazy that those are the 3 quarterbacks they picked because the dynamic's so different between all 3 of them for the season. And it's really kind of neat to see how it plays out, and you get like behind the scenes stuff, which I think is always awesome. Like I like watching Hard Knocks because you get to see a lot of that behind the scenes stuff that you don't get to see regularly. Anyway, this Kelce documentary, it's really cool. And it was kind of supposed to be about his last year. It was supposed to be like a documentary about him, his last season playing, and how he transitions into retirement. And the documentary turns into this magical season for the Eagles, where they ended up getting the number 1 seed and winning the NFC. And then he gets to play in the Super Bowl against his brother. And there's all the stuff with his mom, and the podcast is part of it because this documentary started filming before they were even doing the podcast. So it's kind of neat to watch this documentary and how it unfolds. But it's called Kelce. It's on Prime. It came out 2 days ago. It's like already number 1 on documentaries on Prime after 2 days. But it's worth a watch. If you're a football fan, I'd recommend it. Like, I'm not an Eagles fan, but it's still cool because I like football. But and if you like documentaries too, it's pretty well done. So yeah, it's worth a watch. It's kind of neat.
Amazon does, especially if you like Hard Knocks, they have one of like the best hidden gem shows that they were doing yearly in the NFL called All or Nothing. But it's essentially, All or Nothing is pretty much what they were doing with Kelce, but like more Hard Knocks style. It basically is what Hard Knocks is, but from like the actual season and the team, and it's less about people getting cut and more about like following the main players. So like they did a season with like the Arizona Cardinals when like Carson Palmer was there, I think.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Yeah. So like you get to know a ton of the stars on the team. Like they did 1 year with the Eagles, actually. They did a year with Cam Newton and Carolina Panthers, but they did a year with St. Louis Rams the last year that Fisher was there. That was like a train wreck, and he gets fired midway through the season.
Oh, like the year they moved?
Yeah. So
that'd be wild. Yeah.
Dude, so the show is awesome because it literally follows them from like right when the actual season starts to the end. It's Amazon Prime. They do other sports too. It started out like doing like just big time teams of random sports. But then the NFL one was so good that they're like, we're just going to do one of these every year. And you really get kind of a inside view of a lot of stars and like the things that go on behind the scenes that we love so much about Hard Knocks. It's like shocking to me that that's not like a well-known series. That used to be like my favorite yearly sports thing.
Yeah, here. So they did, they did a year with the Cardinals, a year with the Rams, a year with the Cowboys, a year with the Panthers, and a year with the Eagles.
Oh yeah, they did the Cowboys one too. I forgot about that.
Yeah. No, that's cool. I've never watched it, so
they're really good, and they are Amazon Prime. So like the people that did Kelce, I think, are the like same kind of production quality. So love that. I haven't seen Kelce yet. I did see
it just came out.
It was a show. I saw that it was coming out right after
it's a movie. It's a movie. It's not like a series. So it's like an hour and 40 minutes. Cool. But it's worth a watch. It's kind of neat, to see that. And I like that kind of stuff where you get to see these people that you watch, on TV playing sports, and then you get to see kind of like what home life's like, what the injury, dealing with the injuries and stuff is like. It's kind of neat. So yeah, it's worth a watch there. But
yeah, Jason Kelce is also like the most lovable human being. He's like a teddy bear. Like he's just, he's a killer on the football field, but he's like hilariously goofy.
Yeah. And if you've never listened to an episode of New Heights, like those two, they're so different and yet so the same that it works so well. Right. Like,
it's nice seeing a brother dynamic where like, anyways, and I love Jason Kelce because he's always giving flowers to Doug Peterson, the coach of the Jaguars. So he always says good things about him. So, but yeah, 6 to Midnight. We got football documentary. We got Star Wars. Everything's out there for you guys.
We're hitting all our bases. So anyway, that's great. That takes us into our big premiere movie of the week. The third film in the Kenneth Branagh directed Hercule Poirot series, A Haunting in Venice. Now, those of you familiar with the podcast know that we will give our spoiler-free thoughts on the movie. We'll give a spoiler warning. So then that way, if you don't want to know what happens in the movie, if you're not familiar with the story, you can skip ahead to the next segment and listen to it after you've seen the movie. Or you can stay and hear all the juicy tidbits and information about the movie as we dive into the spoilers. But let's get started with our spoiler-free thoughts on the film. I would say, first off, different tone than Murder on the Orient Express and Death on the Nile. Does very much come across as like a horror thriller mystery, just like the trailer portrays it. They do a really good, a lot of jump scares. You know, I think there was a scene where you were sitting in the seat and you're like, that scared the crap out of me.
Yeah, it scared the shit out of me. Well, so we saw it in Dolby, which like it's different than the IMAX in that it's primarily all about like the quality of sound and bass. And this movie, like whoever the sound wizard is for it, like all of the jump scares had the Dolby like bass shaking the seats. So like if there was a jump scare, like my seat literally like rumbled and shook. And I was like eating Skittles or popcorn or something, and a jump scare happened at a moment that I was not expecting, and it was super loud, and it legit was like, oh, that's good.
Choking on a Skittle.
Yeah. So for the longest time, like seeing the trailer for this, I didn't even realize it was one of the Hercule Poirot like trilogy movies. I just thought it was like a new horror movie that was coming out about a seance and a ghost and stuff. So personally, I actually love that direction that they went. I mean, obviously, you know, I'm all about like the horror movies, but more from the ghost side and the spooky stuff, less of the slasher stuff. And so I was like excited about that. I love the character of Hercule Poirot. He's just so weird and like quirky, but he's like Sherlock Holmesy, and I love that. So the thought of him being like trying to figure out a ghostly, spooky murder was interesting.
Yeah.
So
and so if you're not, and I just want to say, if you're not familiar with the novel it's based on is actually called Halloween Party. Just so everybody knows, I want to get that out there because I wasn't familiar. I don't know what A Haunting in Venice is. So it's based on a novel called Halloween Party. So continue. Sorry.
Yeah. I was just say I really liked the Murder on the Orient Express. I thought that was a good one. I kind of didn't care for the I don't know if maybe it was just timing of when it came out or how they like pitched it or just the overall tone of it. I just that second one was just kind of like meh, no interest in it. And this Haunting in Venice brought me right back to being like, fucking give me more Hercule. I need more of him. So I thought it was fun. I did not know it did a good job of keeping me on my toes of like who was the culprit or like, you know, how it all, not to give any spoilers, how things all kind of played out. So but it was good. It was good. It gave kind of Clue vibes, I would say.
Yeah, I agree. It was I liked the tone a lot. It was very much darker than the previous entries. Kenneth Branagh again I think he's great as Hercule Poirot. I think he does a great job. That mustache rocks. so
Yes,
much.
double
It
twisted.
is the most badass. It might be the most badass mustache since Raleigh Fingers. I don't know. It's pretty dope, but it's good. It's good tone. It's got, like I said, good jump scares. Again, each one of these movies too has like a fantastic cast. Like they get a lot of people to
Yeah.
do these movies. You got Tina Fey. Let's see who else is in this. Tina Fey, Jamie Dornan, Kelly Riley, and then of course Michelle Yeoh are part of the main characters in the film, the headliners, if you will. But yeah, just a bunch of A-listers. It's kind of neat to see. I'd say I'd recommend go seeing it in the theater. I think if you got a Dolby, go see it in the Dolby because,
Yeah.
like you said, the way some of the the things hit and some of the jumpy moments really nail with the great sound. Another thing too with the Dolby, you kind of get the rolling audio. So when there's things coming from different directions, there's a couple scenes where there's noises coming from different parts of the house and like talking, and it's like you're kind of like looking around the theater like, whoa. And so I thought that was pretty neat too. So yeah, I'd recommend seeing it in the theater if you like those kind of movies, and yeah, Dolby if you can, for sure.
Yeah. There was one point in the movie where there was like a kid humming or singing, and
Yeah.
it came from the right
Yes.
only. And I literally looked over because it hadn't happened in the movie yet.
Yep.
So it wasn't something that I was expecting. And I literally like kind of leaned over and looked over at you and Tony, your brother-in-law, to be like, what the fuck is Tony doing? Like, shut up.
Yeah.
I'm trying to watch the movie.
Yeah.
So I thought he was like making the noise.
Who's that kid? Where's that kid at? Yeah. Shut that kid. Shut your kid up. No, I'm just kidding.
And then it got louder and louder, and I was like, oh shit, that's like part of the movie. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah.
But I legit was like, Jesus, Tony, what are you doing?
Why are you making so much noise?
Yeah, good job.
No, definitely recommended. And I think from there we'll go spoiler warning. Spoiler warning. Get
out now.
Get out. All right.
Get
spoilers.
The fuck out.
Get the fuck out. So like the main thing in this movie is it really ghosts or is it something else? Because they keep trying to convince you that there's ghosts in the house. There's this big backstory about all these kids. It was an orphanage and all these kids died there, and they want to kill all these doctors and nurses because that's who left them there to die. And yeah, so it's the whole movie. Like, is there ghosts? Because he's seeing stuff and they're hearing things, and what's going on?
Well, I think like the overall like marketing of it, obviously it was kind of, the trailer was very much, this is a horror movie, but I mean, maybe I'm just speaking for myself, but it feels like all of us were on the like, we know Hercule Poirot's world is, he is a detective who finds out like what's really going on. We know there's not paranormal stuff coming, guys. Right. You can try to tell us as much as you want that it is, but we all know. But then the movie gets going, and I'm like, okay, maybe it's going to be both. That's what I kind of got a little bit early on of like, all right, I think maybe they're going to go both with this. And they kind of did, maybe not, depending on interpretation.
That's exactly right. I would say it's like how you interpreted it at the end, right? Like it's how you feel about those kind of things and how you interpreted it. But basic premise, Hercule's retired. He's living in Venice. An old friend, you could see like people would like wait outside his door that they want him to investigate something, and he just ignores them, right? And he's got a bodyguard that keeps them all away. And then Tina Fey's an old friend of his. She shows up and she's like, I need you to come to this Halloween party. There's a seance afterwards. There's a medium going to be there, and I want you to help me figure out that she's a fraud because I've seen her before and I believe she's real. And if anybody can figure it out, it's you. Yeah. All right. So he's intrigued. He's going to come to the party. So they go to this party. It's a Halloween party for a bunch of orphans. The orphans all leave. Then they do the seance. Basically, the daughter of the woman who owns the house, Kelly Riley's character, she had died 6 months or a year prior, and she wants to speak to her again in the seance. Seance happens. Somebody dies. Well, Michelle Yeoh dies. Anyway, somebody dies.
Well, she doesn't die in the seance. The seance was actually like they started out with her like speaking to the spirits, and she's using her fingers to type the typewriter that she's not in front of. And so at first you're like, oh shit, okay. And then immediately Hercule goes like, hold on, stop, hits a switch at the fucking fireplace and a person falls out, and he's like, this is your assistant who's been working with your other assistant. He pulls out like an electric controller device that he clicks it and the typewriter types, so he kind of debunks it. And so I'm like, oh fuck, all right, cool, okay, well I guess that was pretty quick. We just debunked that she's not real. But then immediately after that, she went into like full possession mode. And they did a great job of making that like freaky as hell, because that scared me. I was like, okay, fucking, she's crazy. And then she started speaking in that, you know, that voices that we've talked about. Anytime someone does a possession voice, they do like a kind of double voice for a second.
Yeah.
But she didn't do that for long. She then switched over to speak in her daughter's voice. And so, which basically solidified to the characters that knew the daughter that like, oh, she's really possessed. So I don't know. I thought that was a good job of like, all right, you debunked it. And then it was like, actually, did he? But yeah, I thought that part was kind of scary. Did a good job.
Yeah, no, it was
freaky deaky.
Chandelier drops. There's things breaking, loud banging underneath the building, and of course it's in Venice, so everything's like they're trapped there because you have to get like a gondola boat to get out, and there's this big storm, and everybody's trapped there. They got no boats.
What did you just say?
They're called gondolas. Gondolas.
A gondola? Gondola?
Yeah. Whatever. Bismarcky.
Somebody put in the comments how it's supposed to be pronounced, or how you would pronounce it. I would say gondola. Gondola is probably maybe the more accurate term, but Bismarcky is definitely not the way you say Bismarcky.
We're not talking about this right now.
Sorry guys.
Get on your gondola.
Get the fuck out.
Hold on,
time out.
Is on the boat too.
Oh my god, best fucking name ever. Antoine Fuckwad, best director ever.
Yeah.
Picture this: you're in a giant old-timey mansion, and you're trapped where someone was murdered, where the murderer was clearly someone in the group, but there's a storm outside. Okay, well, you didn't have to bring that part out, but you're stuck there overnight because there's a storm outside. What movie am I talking about? Am I talking about A Haunting in Venice, or am I talking about Clue? Or am I talking about both?
A House on Haunted Hill.
Am I talking about all three of these movies? Because
maybe there's more.
Those are very similar premises. So
yeah, you can
guys,
say that.
If there's ever any weather on the radar, do not go to an old-timey mansion for a dinner party, because somebody is going to get murdered.
Die, and then more people might die.
Yes.
All right.
Okay, sorry. You continue.
No. You're doing good. You're doing better than me. So anyway, like there's this cast of characters. Now we got to figure out who killed her. Hercule's starting to see ghosts and hear things that nobody else is seeing or hearing. He sees a little girl running through the house. He's hearing her voices. He's hearing kids' voices. Listen, we know what happens next, right? Like everybody starts pointing fingers. Weird things start happening, right? I don't have to get into specific details, right? But there's obviously lots of things going on. One of the other characters ends up dying, right? And so then it's like, well, who killed him? Because he was locked in a room nobody could get to. Ooh, the ghost did it.
Ooh. Okay, that was one of the murders that I was like, really? I don't know if I'm buying that. But it was basically like he stuck the knife on the wall behind him and just like there was didn't even think twice about it.
Yeah,
Yeah, he did that like it
the
was.
story was like he did it, otherwise his son was gonna die.
Yeah, like, which
Couldn't
I
have that.
understand, but there was a little bit of me that was like,
Listen, there's a
come on.
lot more going on in this movie. Basic premise. We all know what happens. Hercule solves the mystery. He was drugged. That's why he was hearing voices and stuff. I'm not going to go into all the details of the movie, but basically at the end, we figure out who the killer was. There was somebody else that was blackmailing him that was involved. Tina Fey was doing shady business trying to get Hercule Poirot there to make him look like an idiot, and his bodyguard was in on that with her. And everybody was up to something, right? Like, that's it. Everybody was involved. Just like in the other movies, everybody was involved in some kind of way. It is what it is. They're cool movies. Like, I like it.
Yeah.
I like this one better than the other two. They're neat. They're fun. I don't think they're super rewatchable because, like, once you know the mystery and whatnot, like, I think that kind of takes the juice out of it. You know what I mean?
Yes.
Like, it's a cool movie to watch. It's a cool mystery to see kind of unfold. Kenneth Branagh does a great job with the character. Obviously, this is a classic character of 20th century literature. Agatha Christie's like, and Tina Fey's character, I kind of think is Agatha Christie in the movie, if you will,
Yes,
because
I was going to say that too.
yeah,
she very much.
They talk about how she's written like 30 books, and it's about this detective, and it's based on him, and all this. And anyway, like it's really good. It's definitely better than the other two. I enjoyed it. I hope they keep making them. I'll watch them.
Yeah. Yes, I'm here. Like, it just depends on. Again, like, I didn't find that the Murder on the Nile was very interesting, but I liked the Orient Express and I liked this one. So I guess for me, it's like, keep making them, but make sure you're staying in a genre or a way of doing it that it's interesting and it's not getting boring. If that makes sense. Probably doesn't make any sense.
That makes sense. I get what you're saying, but at the same time, it's like, I don't think they're boring because I think the character's interesting, and I think that the characters that they put in these movies is overall interesting. Like Death on the Nile, you had a bunch of famous people in that one too. Gal Gadot was in it. Armie Hammer was in it, and that was before he was a weirdo. I mean, he was already a weirdo, but we didn't know it yet. Yeah, we just didn't know he was that weird yet. And, I mean, the original one, Leslie Odom was in it. Johnny Depp was in it. Like, they're cool movies. Like, they're fun to watch. Again, I said I like this one, I think, better. I'd probably give it a 7.5.
Yeah.
I think I'm gonna go 7.5. I think it's a solid movie. Good cast, good characters, different tone, but definitely worth a watch. So I liked it.
I would say, I think 7.5 is like, it's a good solid. It's not an 8, but it's definitely like, it's a good movie for. I think you kind of hit it right on the head. Is that these are a one-time movie, because once you find out what the mystery is, it changes like the interest of the movie, right? So, but it was a good movie and I really liked it, and I left the film feeling like I liked that. I enjoyed that. I got some jump scares in. I got like my fix for like the Halloween creepy vibes. So
it's coming out at a good time, mid-September. Like, we're at the end of summer. We're kind of getting into those fall movies. It's like, it's good right at the beginning of spooky season. Like,
spooky season.
Spooky season. Full on. Let's go. I'm excited to do some spooky movies in October. So maybe
just makes me think of Bruce Almighty. Excuse me, do you have a spoon? He pulls a fucking spoon out of his mouth. Anyways, I'm all over the place. So,
but anyway, that's good. That's our review for A Haunting in Venice. Highly recommend. Go see it. Kenneth Branagh's great. Cast is great. Story's great. 7.5. Solid movie. Go see it. And that takes us into my favorite segment. There can be only 5.
Only 5.
So we're very on brand this week. We
Yeah,
went
yeah.
full in on brand with the movie that we're doing. So my There Can Be Only Five was I decided to do top 5 murder mystery movies. Top 5 murder mystery movies. Obviously murder mystery, there's different genres, right? Like we've got different genres out there. So I got a mixed bag. I think we'll have a couple on the list. Maybe
Probably.
that'll
I
match
think
up.
so.
I'm gonna go.
I
My
think we might
2
have
is
a
my guess.
couple.
I'm gonna guess 2. All right. Top 5 murder mystery movies. Number 5 for me. Who Framed Roger Rabbit?
Love
Who
that.
Framed Roger Rabbit is a classic 80s Disney movie. We've talked about this movie, I think, briefly before when we were doing like Mario Brothers. We were talking about Bob Hoskins. Who Framed Roger Rabbit is like, it holds up great. Obviously, it was made in the 80s. It's a cartoon / live action hybrid, which was kind of like something that you didn't know was a thing, you know, really back then. But basically, it's a whodunit to figure out who killed, you know, the head of Acme, Marvin Acme, and who framed Roger Rabbit for the murder. So it's obviously this like, there's like politics involved with the cartoon characters, and there's like, you know, yeah, and it's kind of, you know, there's some scenes that are a little gruesome for kids and whatnot with the shoe and the dip and things like that. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit is
freaking
it wasn't Disney directly, but it was
fuel.
Touchstone, which was like the adult side of Disney back in the day. But Who Framed Roger Rabbit is number 5 on my list for murder mystery movies. Number 4, I have David Fincher's classic 7.
Ooh, I knew that was going to be on your list. I knew it.
Yeah.
I knew it.
Yeah. 7's a great movie. It's, you know, it's about the 7 deadly sins. Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman are the cops. You know, you don't know who the killer is, like the entire movie. Are you good, man? Like, you've been watching TV for like 10 minutes.
No, I'm trying to find a movie there. I'm not going to be able to find it. I'm not watching TV. And it's been cutting out a couple of times, so I've been kind of waiting. Like, oh, I'm freezing. I'm not freezing. Okay. No, there is a murder mystery movie that I think is on Amazon Prime. It is not a well-known movie that came out in theaters. It's just like a one-off straight to streaming. I don't know how I stumbled upon it like a year or 2 ago, but I watched it and it was amazing. Of this kind of like Hercule Poirot at a dinner party that he's invited to, their daughter to a rich family's house. Their daughter had been murdered, and like her fiance and her like brothers and sister are all there at this dinner party, and this detective gets invited to basically find out like who killed her. And it was such a good movie, but I fucking cannot remember what it's called. So for the last like 5 minutes, I've been trying to like slowly just see if I could find it as I was going through, because I want to put it on my list, but I'm not going to be able to put it on my list because I don't fucking remember what it was called. But like, I was texting my friends, and this might have been before you and me really talked movies, but like it was during Christmas. I texted like this long fucking novel to my 3 homies about this movie of like, you have to go watch this movie because it's so fucking good. And all of them did, and they all loved it. And now I can't fucking remember what movie it is. So sorry, I'm not watching TV. I'm listening, and I've got something to rebuttal your Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Okay.
So continue.
All right. Fair. All right. Good. All right. So 7, David Fincher's classic, Brad Pitt, Morgan Freeman. It's a dark, gritty, very
fucked up.
depressing movie. It's fucked
Yes.
up. Like, it's about the 7 deadly sins. There's a killer and he's doing the 7 deadly sins in horrible, horrible ways. And it has one of the most awesome mind fuck endings to a movie ever.
Yes.
And like in the last 20 minutes, you find out who the killer is because he turns himself in. It's the only reason you know.
Yes.
And it's like, and he's an uncredited, and it's Kevin Spacey, and he is diabolical. And the endings, if you've never seen it, and like, I'm not going to tell you the ending because it's awesome, but you need to watch that movie.
I actually had not seen that movie, but when the Batman was coming out, a lot of people were talking about how it's like similar or the same thing.
You mean
like
you hadn't seen 7 until like a year and a half ago?
Yeah, like not till recently, because you were the one who
Holy
we had the
shit.
same conversation where you were like, "What? You haven't seen 7?" And that was where like I immediately when I went home was like, "Fuck, if the Batman movie is pretty much this, like I got to know where this movie is going to be coming from." So watched it and was like mortified, and it took me like 2 days to get through it because it was like, "Oh, okay."
Oh,
But
yeah.
it was like a mind fuck for sure.
So good,
But
though.
yeah.
All right, so that's what I had at number 4. At number 3, I had Clue. Clue at number 3. Clue's an all-time comedy, murder mystery. I mean, like, Tim Curry's the freaking GOAT as the butler.
Dude.
Like, he's awesome.
Yes.
The entire cast is great. It's all like 80s who's who. You know, it's like Michael McKean, Christopher Lloyd, Martin Mull. Like, who else? Like, it's awesome. If you've never seen it, it's hilarious. It's great. When it came out in movie theaters showed different endings. Like different theaters had different endings to the movie on who the killer was. I think like if you get like
that is some fucking
awesome
diabolical, brilliant stuff.
It is. And like it's such a great movie. It holds up. It's based on the board game, but it's really good. But definitely watch it because the DVD I think has every different ending on it, so you can actually watch them all.
Can we talk about Tim Curry? He is iconic in every role that he's ever played. Like truly a memorable character in every role.
There are people that probably like wouldn't know the name Tim Curry, especially younger generation, because he's had health issues for a while and hasn't done anything in a very long time. But like, you could say, you know, like he's Pennywise from the original It, or he's Rocky Horror.
He's the guy from Rocky Horror.
He's Frankenfurter.
He's
from Rocky Horror.
He's that fucking dude, the iconic dude from Home Alone 2. The crazy smile. the credit card's not working.
Oh yeah,
I love
the bellhop.
you.
the concierge, and then he's Long John Silver, right? Isn't that who he plays in Muppets Treasure Island?
Fucking a Muppets Treasure Island, which is a fucking great movie.
And the one I think that most people don't know he was in, and I don't think you've ever seen this movie, is Ridley Scott's Legend with Tom Cruise. Tim Curry was the Lord of Darkness. If you don't know, it's the coolest version of like the devil, but not the devil ever on film. If you have Google Tim Curry as the Lord of Darkness, and you will see that image and you will be like, there's no freaking way that's Tim Curry. It's like wild. It's like a 1980s prosthetic job of Ron Perlman as Hellboy, but terrifying. Like with the whole body suit, like red paint, like giant horns. It's wild.
Wasn't Legend the movie that you and I looked up like sequels to that were made that were just like horribly bad? Or am I thinking like Leprechaun? I can't remember.
I think something else. I don't think they ever made a sequel to Legend.
You and I watched a horror movie and then you were like, dude, they actually have come out with sequels to this, and we looked them up and they were super low budget, and they were like, I think it was like they're in an apartment building maybe,
Oh, we were
Maybe
what were
I'm
we
not.
talking? We were
Fuck.
talking about something, and I pulled up the trailer for Troll and Troll 2 is what it
Yes.
was, and it was, I can't remember why we
Yes.
were talking about it, but I was like, have you ever seen Troll? I don't remember how the conversation went, and you're like, no, and I'm like, and Troll 2 might be the worst movie ever made in the history of the
Yeah.
universe.
And then when we Googled it, it was literally
It
like listed as the worst movie
Yes,
ever
and
made.
it was filmed as something totally different. It wasn't supposed to be a sequel to Troll, and they just slapped Troll 2 on it for no reason.
Yes.
And
How
anyway,
shocking was it that Troll 2 popped up and not The Flash when we looked up worst movie ever made?
oh,
I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding. I felt like we haven't talked about that in a while, and
we're
I feel
we're
like
at the
that's
movie.
now become our thing.
I know, but I gotta say it. So we're at a haunting in Venice tonight, and the trailer for the Marvels comes on, and Kyle audibly goes barf like super loud, and I look over and I said, if I had to watch The Flash, you're sitting through the Marvels, and he's like, oh god.
The whole
Anyway,
fucking theater thought that was funny, by the way.
they did that.
It
You
just
said
got
barf, so
super
because
quiet. He said
it did
barf.
barf. Oh, it's hilarious. All right. So Clue was number 3. Number 2, we are off the rail. We're never recording after midnight again. This
That's
is
fine.
nuts.
Yeah, I've lost my mind.
Number 2, I have Mystic River at number 2.
Nice.
If you've never seen Mystic River is like, man, it is a phenomenal movie. Like it's about three friends that grew up together. And it's basically Tim Robbins, Sean Penn, and Kevin Bacon as kids. And Tim Robbins basically gets like kidnapped and molested, and then it kind of fast forwards to modern day, and like they're all on different paths. Like Kevin Bacon's a cop, and Tim Robbins is like, obviously he's different because of what happened to him as a kid. Like he's a little off, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then Sean Penn's like the tough guy, right? Like, and he's the one that like he kind of gives you the Teamster vibe, I think, in the movie and stuff.
Yeah, he's like the leader of,
yeah,
like no one fucks with him.
correct.
Like,
And he's got like guys, right, that like work for him and so work for him and whatnot. Anyway, his daughter ends up getting murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And the whole premise of the movie is basically they're like trying to figure out who did it and why. And like all signs point to Tim Robbins. And
of whom they all were friends. They all were childhood friends.
Right. And then, like it's not, but it's like, I think it's directed by Clint Eastwood. It's based on a novel.
Mm-hmm. It is.
Sean Penn won an Academy Award for this movie, which was so well deserved.
His acting is so good. He
is a great actor anyway. This movie, like when they find his daughter's body, and like Kevin Bacon has to tell him, and he doesn't even say it's her. He just looks at him, and the way he like breaks down, like, oh man, just give the guy the award. Holy cow. Anyway, Mystic River, it's a gut-wrenching movie. It's phenomenal, though. You need to watch this movie.
Yeah.
Anyway, I have that at number 2. And then my number 1 murder mystery movie of all time. This is a movie that is in my top 5 favorite movies of all time. When this came out, like I was a teenager. I loved this movie from the moment I saw it. I think it's an all-time classic. This was like, there were people in this movie that weren't super famous yet. And this movie shot them off like a rocket. LA Confidential.
Oh, nice.
Like Kim Basinger won an Oscar for this. It was nominated for Best Picture. It was nominated for a ton of awards. Like it's basically about 3 cops. Kevin Spacey, Russell Crowe, and I don't think Russell Crowe wasn't big in America yet, right? And then Guy Pearce is the third one. And like James Cromwell, Danny DeVito's in it. Like it's like old-timey Hollywood. Like there's elements in this movie that are true life, like Mickey Cohn the mobster. Like there's stuff about that in there. But it's such a great movie. Like if you've never seen it, like it's got a great story. The acting's fantastic. And there's a good twist on like who's doing the murders and stuff that comes up at the end. And like, it's a wild movie. Highly, highly recommended. LA Confidential. That's what I've got for my Number one
I have
murder
not.
mystery of all time.
I have not seen that movie in a very long time. But you talking about it makes me think like, oh, I want to watch that again.
Yeah.
Nice. Loved your list. I still am upset that I can't fucking think of the movie that I want to have on this list. But once I find out, I will follow up and talk about it. This was a hard one because there were a ton of movies that I wanted to put on here. But let's jump through mine. I do have 2 honorable mentions. I actually have A Haunting in Venice as an honorable mention. I thought it was great. It was a great murder mystery. They sprinkled some spooky stuff in there. And then The Pale Blue Eyes is my other honorable mention, which I've talked about here, which I don't think you still have seen. You should watch it.
You probably should.
Christian Bale. If you like The Prestige, if you like Christian Bale, if you like freaking old time settings, set piece stuff, like what's the word I'm looking for? Not set piece, but
no, I know what you mean. You know, I like a good
period piece. That's what I was looking for. And it's good, and it keeps you guessing literally till the end. And then once you've figured it out, they then also trick you again. So, and then my other honorable mentions is you know what? I had it as my honorable mention and I slipped it into my list. So let's jump to number 5.
Okay.
And this is me maybe being a little bit biased, but I had The Batman with Robert Pattinson. I thought it's a murder mystery. Someone got murdered and is getting murdered, and it literally opens up with a murder, and he's trying to figure out who it is. Very obviously, you mentioned the movie Seven. There was a lot of kind of parallels in the movie, correlations to it in terms of like what the killer was doing and how they were trying to find him. So I've got The Batman at number 5. You all will not agree with me, but it's my list. So
it's and your list. That's 100% right.
And then for my number 4, I had Knives Out. Knives Out is an awesome movie. It is just very much like on the same, like A Haunting in Venice, a Murder on the Orient Express type vibes. You're in a house, there was a murder, there's multiple suspects and characters, and a very interesting, unique, kind of quirky Benoit Blanc, who is the detective trying to figure it out. So they do a great, there's a lot of huge big time actors in that movie. Will not give spoilers because that will literally ruin the movie. But Knives Out, I had number 4. And then number 3, I don't know why, but I freaking love this movie. It's super powerful and just completely I always get really teary-eyed when I watch it, so for whatever reason I love it. But I had Gone Baby Gone. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Yep, no, I've seen it. It's a great movie. Yep.
Yeah, little Affleck is in it. There's technically for most of the movie she's a missing girl that they're searching for, but she obviously did not. It's a murder mystery, so really powerful. Basically, Affleck is trying to unravel this, like what happened to this girl, and then finds out that there's more of them that very similar. There might be actually a serial killer on the loose, and there's a kind of a twist ending that we get in it. So I freaking love Gone Baby Gone. And then number 2, my murder mystery, I have Clue. A lot of people would say this is their number 1 murder mystery movie of all time. It is a classic, like you said. My good friend Ken Zeiger, Clue is his all-time favorite movie. And anything that has a character as Mrs. Peacock in it, I'm gonna love. So Clue is great. If you haven't seen it, that's a shame, and you all should go see it. And then my number one murder mystery movie of all time, Mystic River.
Nice.
This movie is, I'm not going to go into details because we already talked about it, but it's powerful. It is an all-time classic movie that has some of the best like acting you will ever see. And as someone who is now a parent, obviously I would never wish to be in any type of situation like that, but like just you automatically put yourself in those shoes and how you would feel and what you would do as a dad if something happened to your kid. Like what like lengths would you go to? So Sean Penn is freaking awesome in it, and there's a super sad ending. But it's great. Sweet. Okay, so we had some similar movies there. I think what we had.
Oh,
I guess we had
two.
one, right? Oh, we had two. Okay,
Two. I was right. We had two.
Look at that. Well, and my next list, we might have a couple more similar ones that line up with the ones that you were just talking about. So,
Right.
love that. My list this week was top 5 movie detectives. So doesn't necessarily have to be murder specific. I kind of leaned more towards that route with kind of the staying in that kind of murdery world. So I had for my number 5, I don't have any honorable mentions, my number 5 greatest movie detectives, Eddie Valiant from Who Framed Roger Rabbit.
Nice.
When I think of like a detective, like who's a detective in a movie, for whatever reason, that's the first guy that I think of. So, just like the whole like gumshoe, like when he's in his like office, like drinking, and he's got like newspapers and his little scotch glass that he's using as a magnifying glass. Like there's like everything about being a detective in a movie is in that scene. So I had Eddie Valiant. And then number 4, I mentioned him a little bit earlier, but I had Benoit Blanc as my other my number 4 greatest movie detective. He is in Knives Out, and then he's also in Glass Onion, which just came out like I think on Christmas Eve last year. Very much similar movie franchise as like A Murder on the Orient Express, Haunting in Venice. It's a super like just really weird and goofy character. Daniel Craig, also known as James Bond to most, plays Benoit Blanc. And he's really great. Both movies are super different, but his character, like he leans into it and he crushes it. So
he's like the modern day Hercule Poirot. Benoit Blanc.
Yes, he literally. I mean, obviously, there's a lot of parallels, and that's clearly where the inspiration came for the character. But he's like the modern version. He's a little bit more flamboyant than Hercule Poirot. That's not why I was saying he was flamboyant.
No, but Ryan Johnson said he is. So
yes, I mean more of like there are moments where he really like gets a lot of energy, and he just kind of like opens up, and he's just like he's loud and kind of funny. In Knives Out, he's a little bit more reserved, but definitely in Glass Onion, he's a little bit kind of crazy. So, and it probably has more to do with why can't I think? Edward Norton is the one of the main characters in Glass Onion, like main like characters directly across from him. So it's a good movie. If you haven't seen it, which I don't think you have, you should check out Glass Onion. So great mystery, great whodunit kind of movie. So go check it out. And then number 3, we've been talking about this man all night. I have got Hercule Poirot. Now, this one was hard because I'm not really speaking specifically to one version. Yeah. This character is, I mean, you mentioned it. There's a million old-timey movies. There's There's the Amazon ABC murders with
Yep.
John Malkovich playing him.
Yep.
There's so many people that have played him very differently,
Yep.
but there's something cool about like a world famous detective that like everyone knows, and he only takes the cases that where it's an impossible find, and he always figures it out. So I've got Hercule Poirot as my number 3 greatest movie detectives. Number 2, this one, everyone judge me. This might be me being biased. You could say, oh, he shouldn't be on this list or not, but I had Rick Deckard. This is Han Solo playing in Blade Runner, the original Blade Runner. He is essentially a detective or a Blade Runner who is trying to find these 3 basically rogue cyborgs, or I forget what they call them in particular in Blade Runner, but it's like this sci-fi cyberpunk 80s synth vibes, and Harrison Ford just freaking crushes it as this like gumshoe in the future. They didn't the newer one is less like that old school gumshoe vibes, but like when the original movie came out in theaters, they even had Harrison Ford basically like narrating the whole movie throughout, which not a lot of people remember. But like kind of like those old detective noir movies where like the detective never says anything, but like you hear him talking over as like, she walked to the door and the moon was out. Like that kind of vibe. Like the that's how the original Blade Runner came out. That's the best version is the director's cut. But anyways, I got Rick Deckard as my number 2 greatest movie detective. And then number 1, this man is this character, which is weird to say because there's another character that we all see him only as. But I've got one Robert Downey Jr. as one Sherlock Holmes. Man, freaking Robert Downey Jr. as Sherlock is like a home run.
It was.
He was so good. And I wish they would come out with another one. But like we talked a little bit last week about the Equalizer when he like slows down time and he's kind of like assessing the room. Like that, when Sherlock does that in like the first movie and he like is saying out loud like the things he's gonna break and the like who's gonna move where and the calculations of him taking out a room, it's fucking awesome. And he is super cool as Sherlock Holmes. So Robert Downey Jr., Sherlock Holmes, my number 1 movie detective of all time. I got some really wild curveballs in there, but I think some of those are also like all-time greats. So I'll stand by it.
Pretty good. So I actually do have an honorable mention because it's a little bit of cheating because it's a TV character that they made a movie out of this year. So an honorable mention, I have DCI John Luther, played by Idris Elba. If you've never watched the show Luther, it's amazing. And you all probably know Idris Elba is amazing and should be in everything. Like everything. Yeah. It is.
2020 sexiest man or something, right?
Yeah, something like that, right? Like I was runner up again. But they made a movie. It was called Luther the Fallen Sun, which was actually released earlier this year. And is on Netflix, but it was released in theaters before it was on Netflix. But there's five series of the Luther TV show, but highly recommend. He's awesome. At number 5, I had Ace Ventura. At number 5.
Oh, I looked at that and I even thought about it. I did think about that.
Listen, this is my list, and this is what I enjoy. There are great detectives in movie history that have come from, literary and whatnot. And there's Inspector Clouseau and Pink Panther, and there's Philip Marlowe and all of his series. But I'm picking Ace Ventura at number 5 because I think Jim Carrey as Ace Ventura is hilarious. Those two movies are like all-time 90s, like just goofball comedy. The first Ace Ventura really, I think, was Jim Carrey's big break, because I think he made that, and then The Mask came out like immediately afterwards, and then Dumb and Dumber came out, and Jim Carrey was now a superstar like immediately after that. So
yes, I
Ace
freaking
Ventura.
love both of those movies equally and separately. I
like the first one a lot more than the second one, but they are both have their redeeming qualities.
Yes.
Number 4, I have John Shaft, as played.
Nice.
John Shaft, as played by multiple characters. I never saw the newest iteration of Shaft, where it was like third generation after Samuel L. Jackson, and
there's been a more recent one since Samuel.
Yeah, there was. I'm pulling it up. But yeah, so it was the original Richard Roundtree Shaft, and then there was the like 2000s 2000. I mean, there was, what was there? Shaft's Big Score, Shaft
Jesse
in Africa.
T. Usher.
Yeah. And then and that was it was like Samuel Jackson's nephew. I don't remember, but I never saw it. But anyway,
was it in the same realm, like the same movie? Like it was in the same universe as the Samuel L. Shaft?
Yeah.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
What? Sorry, continue. I'm listening.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it came out like 2019. It's the guy that plays he was, oh my gosh, he was like, I don't know his name. What's his name? Jesse T. Usher.
Oh, I remember.
He's the speedster in the show The Boys. It's that guy.
Oh yeah,
Jesse T. Usher. He's and then Richard Roundtree and frickin' Samuel Jackson are in it too. So it's a sequel.
I was like, wait, they got all three of them in it. Wild.
Yes, I know. That's what I'm saying. Anyway,
wild.
Anyway, I've Shaft at number 4. The original Shaft, Shaft is awesome, and then the Samuel L. Jackson remake also awesome. He's just a badass. Let's be real.
Who's the famous famous white guy, bad guy in Samuel L's Shaft before he got big? Christian Bale. He was so good as a fucking dickhead bad guy.
Oh yeah, he's awful. Super racist too, but yeah, it's a good movie.
Yeah, very racist.
Very racist. Number 3, I had like we said, the guy we've been talking about all night, Hercule Poirot, at number 3. For all the reasons we've already talked about numerous times. The mustache,
both having him at number 3.
The mustache probably puts him. That's what puts him at 3.
Higher.
It's just the mustache. Yeah. And then at number 2, I had Dirty Harry Callahan.
Oh, nice.
Famously portrayed by Clint Eastwood in the Dirty Harry series. Dirty Harry. This is out of order. I'm trying to remember what they're called. Dirty Harry.
Do you feel lucky?
Deadpool.
Well,
the Deadpool was the last one. Man, I think the second one is the one that's the best one too, because the original Dirty Harry's good. Gosh, what's the second one?
I'm gonna be frank with you.
You've never seen them.
Obviously, I know the famous parts from that movie, but I've never seen those movies.
You've never seen,
and I never.
So the first one was Dirty Harry. The second one was Magnum Force. The third one was The Enforcer. The fourth one was Sudden Impact, and the Deadpool was the fifth one. There's 5 of them.
What makes him the second best detective to you? What about him?
You've never sine him. You don't even know. You can't even talk about it.
I know. It's what I'm asking. I'm not saying that.
They're all
makes him cool.
So I base this mostly on Magnum Force. So Dirty Harry takes place in San Francisco, and it's very much based on Zodiac. And Dirty Harry's like this. He's basically like the detective that's got to try and figure out who's killing these people, and he's going to do whatever it takes to figure it out. So he bends the law to get there, right?
Dirty comes from. He's a dirty cop.
It's Dirty Harry, right? And then Magnum Force is, I think, the one with there's these motorcycle cops that are killing people, and he's got to figure out who these dirty cops are that are murdering people. And it's an awesome freaking movie. And there's this big shootout at the end with where he's fighting these dirty cops and stuff. It's a badass movie. But anyway, yeah, Clint Eastwood is a badass as a cowboy.
Confirmed.
He's even more of a badass as frickin' Dirty Harry. Like, if you got to at least see the original, I think. If not, you've got it's worth a watch.
I have gone back and watched like A Man with No Name and all those movies.
Those are great. Yeah,
within the last couple of years of like, these are classics that I've never seen. I need to watch them.
Yeah,
so
they're very.
I'll do that.
It's worth a watch, and if we ever want to watch Dirty Harry, man, I'll sit down and watch Dirty Harry. I've got all of them. They're awesome movies.
I don't think anything would make me feel more like my granddad than doing that, but in honor of them and not wanting to say that I'm too young for that, I would love to watch those old movies.
Like, because I mean, you can watch a 70s detective kind of movie, right? Like, I mean, Hercule Poirot's a 40s freaking detective movie. There's nothing that says you can't watch 70s.
That's a good point. I think 70s though is like the time frame of movies like that I just am not about. No, I guess that's not that I'm not about it, but not necessarily my favorite.
I get what you're saying. I pick up.
I like the 80s vibes. I like early, like roaring 20s, the 30s, the 40s, the 50s. And you get like the 60s and 70s, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to see the hippie stuff.
I would say this, like the 70s all have this very, like most of the movies have this very kind of gritty vibe about them. And I'm thinking of like some of the most, like think about the classic movies that come out of the 70s, like The Godfather, right?
That's a good point.
Come out of the 70s. Like, have you ever seen like Serpico or like Dog Day Afternoon or any of those? Like, they're all very, you know what I'm talking about? You're seeing those? Like,
Star Wars came out in the 70s. I know that.
Yeah, that doesn't really take place in the 70s. Maybe it does. Well, anyway, yeah. It's
was Taxi Driver? Was Taxi in? Taxi Driver 70s.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, 70s. Okay.
Yeah. So Taxi Driver, yes, very much so. Anyway, number one, Sherlock Holmes. The number one. Like the Robert Downey Jr. version, like is everything you said it was. It's awesome. It's so fun to watch. Guy Ritchie does a great job of directing it. Robert Downey Jr. is awesome anyway. He does a great job of portraying Sherlock Holmes in a very distinct manner. But Sherlock Holmes he's like Hercule Poirot. He's been portrayed by a lot of different people very well. Okay, but like when I think about Sherlock, it's Robert Downey Jr. and it's Benedict Cumberbatch, and like that's it.
I was just going to say Benedict Cumberbatch as Sherlock is amazing.
It's amazing.
That show is one of the best shows ever.
Yes,
literally. If you haven't seen the show Sherlock with Benedict Cumberbatch,
yes,
it is his best work. My wife was obsessed with that show. We like the second we put it on, we binged all the way through. I love that we got to bring up that show because I don't think it gets enough credit for how amazing it was.
Right.
But
you're absolutely right.
Not to take that off the rails.
You're like, listen, and like that version of Sherlock is very modern day. Martin Freeman plays Watson. He's fantastic as Watson.
Yes.
Like some of the storylines are great, like in that series. And this is British TV is very different than American TV. Like each season is short. It's it's a few episodes. They tell it's very like a long form movie, right? That's kind of how they do it.
Yes,
Luther's the same way. Like... If when I was talking about Luther, it's the same way. It's very similar. Luther's a lot. Luther's kind of darker because there's a lot more like blood and stuff. And he's even crazier than Sherlock in some of the things he does. But Sherlock's it's great though. Cumberbatch is fantastic. But
they did I don't know if you knew this, but they actually did. So their episodes are like an hour and a half. They literally are like movies.
It's like a mini series almost. Yeah.
Yes, they did. Yeah, and each season's only like 3 or 4 episodes, so it's really easy to fucking get through. Yes. They did a special of like I forget something Bride, but basically they did all of the actors and characters from Sherlock, and they did back in the original time period of like like the
I
Robert
did know
Downey
that.
Jr. Sherlock.
I
So
did know that. Yeah,
it
even with the
was like a
old-fashioned hat and stuff. Yeah.
yes, it was
Yes.
like a Christmas special,
Yes.
and it's actually fucking scary. Like it was kind of like a horror.
Was it the
Like
Hounds of the
vibe.
Baskervilles?
No, it's called something
Okay.
Bride, but
Okay.
I don't know if maybe that's the story of it. But
No,
it's very like Jack the Ripper vibes,
Yeah.
and like there's like a bride that was murdered, and she is.
I can't remember if I watched that or not because I've seen
Dude.
every season of Sherlock, and I was trying to think if I watched that or not because I think I've watched it. Like in my head, I've watched it, but I don't remember it. But I swear I've watched it.
Yeah, it didn't come. It's called The Abominable Bride, and it didn't come out during a season. It was like, God, she looks fucking horrifying.
Yeah,
I don't know if you can see it. She looks
I can see
fucking
it,
terrifying. She looks like the Joker, straight like red lips. Like Sherlock is a show that they like do a season and then they say, all right, the next season's gonna be in like fucking 3 years. It's like literally they go like 3 or 4 years between the next season, and they just randomly dropped The Abominable Bride in like between like 2 years between a season, and it was like a huge deal in our household because it was like my wife and I were like super pumped for it. It came out during Christmas time. It's cool to see all of the characters from the modern Sherlock back in like original Sherlock Holmes like setting.
Yes.
So super cool. Bilbo Baggins is fucking awesome as Watson. Anyways,
Martin Freeman's awesome.
I love it.
Yeah. So anyway, that's my top 5 movie detectives.
Nice. I wish we would get another Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock. Like
I would too, and I would like
is
them
that
to.
Out of the question?
No, because there was rumors they had talked about doing another one, and like I think Guy Ritchie was like super busy, and they were trying to make it work. I think it's gonna happen. I would say it's 50-50 right now because obviously Sherlock Holmes is something you don't have to age out of.
Yeah.
You know, and I think both Jude Law and Robert Downey Jr. said, yeah, if the script's right, we'll do another one. You know,
and which ask, like, who was the Watson in that? It was Jude Law.
Yeah, it was Jude Law, and he was great too. And then as far as the Cumberbatch one, I think that's something a lot of people have been clamoring for, and him and Martin Freeman have kind of said like, nah, we did it long enough, and I think we're done.
Yeah,
you know, kind of.
I think that's accurate.
Because
the public wants it, and they're like,
right,
we were gonna do it 3 years later, but now we have all. They fucking skyrocketed in fame like at the same time. So,
but Idris did too, and then he came back and made a movie. You know, and I would like to see him do that with Sherlock. It'd be great if they did, and that's what kind of Abominable Bride was kind of that. Maybe that was probably probably their send off. But you know, there was I remember when Infinity War came out, Avengers Infinity War came out, and there were there's all the banter between Doctor Strange and Iron Man on the ship, right, when they're heading to Titan. And I remember there was somebody was like, they really missed the opportunity for Iron Man to say, no shit, Sherlock.
Dude.
You know, in that conversation, which would have been pretty awesome.
That a lot of people would have fucking awesome.
Yeah, it would have been.
Yeah, cool now that I didn't really connect those dots until you say it right now, but I'm like, oh shit, yeah, the two best Sherlocks like of all time were multiple movies together. So
obviously, at least the modern ones, but I mean, they are. I'm not gonna lie.
They're fucking great. That's the show that we'll go back and like rewatch. Like there's not very many shows that's like, all right, we've already seen this, but we're gonna go back and watch it again.
Man, and the guy that played Moriarty in the Cumberbatch, he's awesome. Like that guy doesn't do much. He's not in a lot of stuff, but damn, he was awesome as Moriarty in that show.
Dude, fucking unhinged, but like crazy genius.
Psychopath,
very Joker vibes in Sherlock. The one that is in the movies, what's that actor's name?
Oh, it's Jared something or another, isn't it?
I like him too as an actor. He fuck, he's one of those guys that you see him in a million movies and you're like, oh yeah, I know him, but I just don't know his name off the top of my head.
Yeah, I know it's Jared.
Like Scottish
Jared
dude.
something because he's in a ton. Yeah, he's in a ton of stuff. Hold on, I'm looking it up real now.
He was in Mad Men too. His character like kills himself, unalives himself.
He was in. Oh man, he was in Chernobyl. Did you see that miniseries?
Yes, he was the main character.
Yeah.
Oh, dude, Chernobyl was freaking awesome.
Yeah.
Best scary horror TV show that's not supposed to be a horror show. It's
correct.
Chernobyl.
And Mark Strong was the bad guy in the first Sherlock Holmes movie with Robert Downey Jr. Mark Strong was the bad guy, and that was before he was super famous. Jared Harris was Moriarty, and he's Richard Harris's son. Richard Harris was.
Come on, world.
Jared Harris.
No, you can't see
Richard.
It. No, it's not gonna
Richard
work.
Harris was. Well, gosh, what all was he in? Man Called Horse. He was Dumbledore in the first two Harry Potters. He was in Unforgiven. That's who Richard Harris was. But yeah, that's Jared Harris.
Jared Harris has been in a million fucking movies.
A million movies. But yeah, like you said,
know his name.
He's one of those guys that like I know who he is, but you know, he's not.
Yeah, the second like Chernobyl,
famous.
I think is a good one because he literally like carried that whole show.
I know we're trying to get to the end of the episode, but that might be one of the greatest TV series of all time.
Dude, Chernobyl was
phenomenal. Anyway,
yeah, that was a bingeable show. All right, well, we gave you a ton of great shows to watch, people. If you haven't watched Sherlock or Chernobyl, it's
Luther.
time. Luther. I haven't seen Luther.
Badass.
So maybe that's
it's so bad. And again, it's just like Sherlock. Like if Steph likes Sherlock, you guys would like Luther. And it's Idris, and they're short, right? Like some of the seasons are like 3 episodes, so you can get through it fast. But that takes us to the end of episode 21, A Haunting in Venice. Go see it, 7.5 across the board. Highly recommended. We'll be back next week for episode 22. We're gonna do a football episode because it's football season, and we're gonna watch. This is a you need to see this movie because this is one of those movies that like not everybody knows exists.
Yeah,
because it's an all-time classic. It might be the best football movie of all time. Maybe we'll rank them next week and find out. But we're gonna watch The Program, and we're gonna talk about The Program. Which, if you haven't seen The Program,
baby.
You are missing out.
My
program.
Brother and I watched that movie a ton when we were playing college football. It's just there's something about it that I just freaking love. So
yeah, it's a great movie. Anyway, that's the end of the episode, team. Guys, if you're watching us on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Leave us a comment. Give us suggestions what you guys want to see. If you're listening to us on a podcast service, you can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Podcast Index. See some of our short videos on social media at Movie Dads Pod on Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok. Thanks for listening. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next week.
Go Jags. Bye.
Rude.
You're going to cut that.